be, right? Just a little bit about him. He's actually, he was an engineer, but now he's a VP at Verifone, right? He was a veteran. He spent a long time as a manager, senior manager at Amazon and another organization. We have Uma Abu, right? I'm pronouncing it. Yes. And Uma, man, he has a really big list of roles right now, right? He's a software engineer. He's a former software engineer at Microsoft. He is a founder of an organization called Candor, right, which helps underrepresented communities break in the tech industry. He's a big content creator. Some of you guys know him from YouTube, different social media platforms, right? LinkedIn, maybe TikTok. You on TikTok too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
All of them. Everything. Right. He's a mentor, and he's a course creator. He does so many things. So we're really happy to have him. And we have Temi as well, who is a software engineer, and he's worked at a number of companies. So thank you so much. Everybody give them a round of applause, all of our guest speakers. Thank you guys so much. So the first question that I have is, if I can find it. All right. So the first question is, everybody here on this panel, right? You guys have been like successful at just cracking interviews and, worst market, right? Everybody is, if you go on Reddit, Reddit is looking down, right? Reddit is looking down bad. They're saying, ghosting and just a lot of rejections, and it's taking a really long time for people to get these roles. So what of that is true, and what of that is just maybe exaggerated? And I'll give you guys the mic.
Yeah, I could go first.
Yeah.
I think most of it is true. The market has changed. Everything is completely different. There are less roles that are open, and there are more qualified people for those roles. So recruiters have their pick. You can ask Day1 Darius, he'll tell you. But the idea is the competition is a lot higher, and so a lot of it is true, to answer the question. Sure.
So my current job that I'm in, it was all networking. I was brought over by a peer that I had at AWS. So he knew I'd been talking to him for years and years. I was at Amazon for 12 and a half years. Most of those were at AWS, 10 years at AWS. And I think I talked to him for years about wanting to leave, and that I just hadn't found anything that was super appealing. But I talked to a lot of people about that. And about a year or so after he joined my current company, we were just talking, and he was saying, hey, it's looking like I need some help. Can you come over and help me out? And we talked sort of back and forth, and eventually came up with something that it sort of had the right scope that I was looking for and sort of made sense, and that's how I ended up over there. But I want to say that, especially my last 5 years or so, I've always been big about just talking to people anyways, even if I'm not looking, just so that if I need somewhere to go, there's somewhere that's next. So I want to say that when I came to Amazon, as an example, I just did the regular go through LinkedIn. Eventually somebody reached out, that kind of thing. But more lately, it's been just building a network and making sure I got somewhere that's the next place to go.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to add to that a little bit, I think it's definitely a really hard market, and I want to be careful not to speak with like platitudes, because I know that it's not very easy. But I think the two things are true. The first one is there are lots of very qualified applicants. We're seeing lots of layoffs. There's people like exceptional engineers getting laid off as well. But the second thing is, with the advent of AI, people are just mass applying. I mean, you see apps that feel like these dating apps where you can just like swipe left to apply. Then the other thing is, like he mentioned, recruiters can be very selective about their candidates. But I think that even in that market, there's still a space for just distilling it down to the systems. And I want to be careful with saying that, because I know that it's really not that easy to do it. But I think that just having those systems in play can still give you an edge. Tailoring your resume to the right places, whether it's networking like you mentioned, whether it's doing very cold outreach to different people, hiring managers, recruiters, whether it's just connecting your network to see if you can get good enough referrals. Sometimes just even cold applying works. I got my own very recent role. I used to be at Amazon as well for about 4 years. I got my recent role just by cold applying, and I did get a lot of referrals as well, but this particular one that turned out to be a good one for me, it was just by cold applying. So I'd say that works. I think to summarize what I'm trying to say is, it is a difficult market, but I think that there's still a lot of possibility for whomever's looking for any position.
Yeah. All right, thank you guys. Thank you guys for sharing that. One thing that's weird, I don't know, this is not really a question, but one thing I've seen that's a little weird is like sometimes, you know, you apply and you get that rejection immediately, right? And then you're like, huh. You're like, whatever, right? Dust off your shoes, right? Just whatever they say, right? Dust it off, right? Shake it off. That's what Taylor said, Taylor Swift. And then there's, but then sometimes they'll message you, a recruiter will find you on LinkedIn or something. Like they'll backtrack and they'll be like, wait a minute, like we gotta make a U-turn on this person, right? This person is all right. The system did something. So I don't know if anybody's seen that, but no, okay. Nobody's seen that? All right. I got some nods on the no U-turns. Okay. But yeah, so the next question that I have, right, is what do you guys think is like the big secret, or like maybe not really a secret, about like passing the interview loops nowadays? Because they're, you know, from a lot of people's perspective, like the loop is a lot more difficult. They pretty much, it got difficult. It got more difficult.
Yeah, I would say from my experience, when I joined my current company that I'm working in now, unlike a lot of people, I love technical interviewing, right? So I had been ready the whole time. So when I went to a conference and then I spoke to an engineer about the work I was doing, which is something that is important now, because I think we're all software engineers. We can all write code. The CI/CD pipelines are the same. We're deploying it to AWS, but like it's all the same stuff, right? So what helped me get through to the interviewers or to the recruiter or to whoever I was talking to was the narrative I could tell behind my work, right? It's not just saying I'm doing this, it's why are you doing it? What was the outcome from it, right? Did someone tell you to do this, or did you go find problems that you could solve, and what was the outcome of that work, right? So especially with AI now, like AI can write code better than any one of us can, right? So the actual skill, like he said, is less on the implementation, right? At work, to be fair, I don't remember the last time I wrote code manually. Cloud does basically everything, right? But what I do know is the context of the domain that I'm in. I know the context of why the code needs to be done this way and why this is here and why that's there. And that's the narrative that I will put forward or I would use to brand myself when I am in specific rooms or having specific conversations. So I would say that's what I would focus on, right? Less on just saying, oh, I know this stack and I know this thing and I know this. What's the outcome of what you've done with that thing, and why should I care, right? Why should the person think that thing is, rather you being able to do that thing adds value or puts you in a position where you can solve more complicated or similar problems for them. Yeah. Long story short is the narrative is more important than the actual, right now, the narrative is more important than the actual work itself, because someone who is doing not so important work can sell it like they're doing something crazy, and then all of a sudden they're now up here in the eyes of the recruiter than you that's doing way more technical work. But because you focused only on that technical part and not the story behind it, you don't get to move past it. So
yeah. Wow. Thank you. No, good point. So like every other organization, I think we're under pressure to do more with less. So we're seeing more and more, you know, if I had 5 people on staff, I got to replace them with 3. And it ends up being a situation where the people that I can hire, the people who are coming in, I have to make sure that everybody who comes in is somebody who can bring something to the table immediately. And so, you know, it's not that I'm looking for the most senior person, but let's say, for example, it's even a junior person. I need that person in the interview to be able to articulate to me what thing that they do right now that they're good at and they can bring value to the table. So actually yesterday I had this really interesting interview with somebody who would be like the equivalent of an Amazon SDE2 basically. And I had a really hard time just getting this person to just explain to me what he did for this project that I thought he would be able to explain to me really well. So it's the kind of thing where I was looking at his resume and he listed 3 projects, and very quickly I just said, oh, what's this one, this one, this one? And he explained to me 3 projects really quickly, and I was like, oh, which one of these do you think you can explain to me the best? And he was like, oh, the second one. So I just teed it up for him. This was just like a gimme. And so I'm just like, oh, this one's, so you know the most about this one, right? You worked on it recently, like a year ago. But it was so difficult for this person to articulate what they had done. And it's something that I needed on my team. So he was doing a modernization project. We're going to move something from on-prem into the cloud, and we're going to containerize it, move into EKS. So difficult to get this person to explain it to me. And I just kept trying to push and just be like, okay, look, I know you're nervous, but don't worry, I got plenty of time. Just explain to me what's going on. And I had a really hard time just getting this person to explain that to me. And then I went and thought about it for like the rest of the day, and I remember thinking, the reason I was pushing so hard on this is the exact kind of interaction I would have with the engineer that's now on my team. Like, I don't have a lot of time, so if this person is working on something and I need to understand what this person did so I can report upwards, I need that person to be able to explain to me very clearly what they did. And like Uma was saying, what is the business value of the thing that you're working on? Why is it important to our company? Great if you can tell me some metrics. Those don't usually come naturally to people, but what's the before, what's the after? But if you can't even tell me what the thing is that's useful, that's pretty tough. And I want to say that when you're interviewing somebody, you almost want that person who can very concisely, very clearly tell you what the business value is of the thing. It almost becomes just an easy way to differentiate yourself. I see this a lot where, with engineers especially, people want to sell you on how great their code is. But if you really think about it, we're not being paid to write code. We're being paid to solve customer problems. It just so happens that the way to get there is by writing code. And so it's really important that you have to be able to articulate the business case and why it matters to the customer. If you can do that very, very clearly, I think Uma was making the same point, that can actually just really differentiate you.
Yeah, I totally agree on what you both have actually said. I'm going to take this from a different perspective, just so that we can add some more light to some of the things that you talked about. So yes, I think communication is very, very critical, fortunately, or maybe unfortunately for some of us. But the thing I want to touch on is the difficulty of these interviews. And again, I don't want to say this is, I didn't do any like statistical analysis on this. This is just my anecdotal experience. I think it's important to qualify that. I do think has anyone read the book Cracking the Coding Interview? Anyone? Okay.
Yep.
I think these days that book seems somewhat easy, right? The questions that are there, like, these questions are not as hard as the questions I'm being asked. I think that's true. But I'd also say, the last time I was interviewing this, last time I went through an interview cycle was about 4 years ago. I don't think the questions themselves have gotten particularly harder, but I do think the bar has gotten harder. And I'll give you another anecdotal experience. I went through an interview loop. One of the offers I got about 4 years ago, I think it's on-site 5 rounds. 4 of the rounds went incredibly well. 1 round didn't go up, it just went okay. Ended up being one of the offers I got. But at the same time, just being at Amazon and sitting on many of these interview panels, in many cases, some candidates are able to raise the bar just by doing really well in 3 out of 4 of their final round in the interviews, right? I would say these days, my anecdotal experiences when I interviewed just recently, there are some that I was very confident about. Like, the whole thing went well, all 5 rounds, all 4 rounds, in some cases all 7 rounds, unfortunately. And then you hear back and like, oh, we went with someone else. Or it takes like 2 weeks for them to get back because they're evaluating other very, very strong candidates as well. And so it becomes not a case of whether or not you can do the job or perform well at the interview, but how well can you perform relative to everyone else who's interviewing at the same time, unfortunately. I say that to say that, yes, the bar's gotten harder, but that's still a light here. And I think like what they've mentioned, being able to communicate is very important. But I think also being able to just dot the I's and cross the T's is very critical. Sometimes it might be a follow-up to a really hard question. Sometimes it might be how you explain something like they've mentioned. And I think those kind of things might help really set you apart a lot. Actually, just to finalize this, the thing that I think helps a whole lot is really what they mentioned, just going back to that. Yes, everyone knows you just have to leak code, unfortunately or fortunately. But I think beyond that, being able to explain what you're saying, being able to buy in, because for the most part, the recruiter wants you to succeed, because that's how, it's a lot of work for them to filter through hundreds of, or thousands of candidates. Whoever is interviewing you also wants you to succeed. So as they tee things up for you, like he mentioned, if you can take those signals and just, hold on to them and just continue to explain yourself or communicate what you're working on, I think that would really help. So I guess that, and to summarize, it is, I wouldn't particularly say the interviews have gotten that much harder, but I did notice that the bar of what makes a great candidate has gotten a little bit hire.
Awesome. Real quick, anybody have a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What question? We only do
Yeah.
one question. Remember the $50? You got it.
You said crafting a compelling narrative is like the most important part.
Is one of the most important part, yeah.
How do you craft a good narrative?
That's a good question. Sadly, this goes back to knowing why you were doing the work you were doing in the first place before you did the work. So I have a brag sheet. I don't know how many people know what a brag sheet is. It's just a list where you keep all the work that you've done, why it was important, who you did it with, and the outcome of it. If you have that, it's a lot easier for you to then go through and say, okay, this is why I did this thing, and this is the outcome of that. And from there, the narrative kind of like writes itself. And if you have that and you're going through it, maybe every quarter, every year, you can start to see when the work that you're doing isn't doing anything, right? That's when you can then start to like course correct. But now is all about going back, looking back and saying, okay, what have I done, right? Out of all the tasks that I was given, all the Jira tickets that I closed, why was I doing this work? And then lead with that instead of the technical stuff, like he said.
We have another question. I guess the other question is just when joining a new team, like what's your experience joining a new team? Like especially nowadays, the current market, is it like busy? Is there more workload? Like you mentioned, like some teams are getting a little smaller these days. Like what's the expectation on new teams?
I'm coming up on 1 year, but when I joined, there wasn't a lot of like expectations to get stuff done, but everyone was getting stuff done, so you had to start getting stuff done, right? So that's the experience there. In general, I don't want to go too deep into the onboarding process, but just jump right in, look into the code base, figure out how you can start to add value, understand what's happening, ask a lot of questions. You're new, that's why you can ask dumb questions in quotes, and then no one is going to look at you some type of way for asking that type of question because you have no context, right? But yeah, that's typically what it's like. Lately, it's been more when you've been there long enough, they kind of expect you to start to do stuff, but that's a conversation for a different day.
I want to say that my experience joining a new company, same thing. I've been there almost a year now. It was important to me to make an impact right away. So almost immediately, I was looking for what are some of the gaps that I see. What are some of the things that I think need to be improved, and what changes can I put in place? And right away, I went and did a few things that I thought made an impact. But I'm also looking for the same things with people that I hire. Because we're sort of under pressure to, not bring in as many people as what we could before. Like I said, if I can only bring in 2 people instead of 5, I want to make sure that the 2 people can make an impact right away. So I'm finding myself being the person who's setting pretty ambitious goals for them, and I want them to demonstrate that we made a good hire pretty quickly. And I want to say that's probably going to be true going forward, especially if other companies are sort of in the same situation. There's an analogy that I like to use, which is for these types of jobs, especially these jobs that folks tend to have in this room are very high-paying jobs, and anymore these companies are very budget conscious, so they want you to make an impact. The analogy I like to use is, think of yourself as being the person in class who is going to be right at the front with your hand up, like, pick me, I want to do some work. That's really the energy that you want to bring. What I don't want to see is the person who I hired and they're the person who's sitting in the back of the class just trying to keep a low profile. In fact, we had a leadership meeting with our CEO just yesterday, and he was saying he actually wants to weed out people like that who are just trying to be in the back, keeping quiet, keeping a low profile. And I want to say that's probably true of a lot of leaders. So again, I think the energy you want to bring, you come in, you want to be the person who's right up front volunteering for the hard assignments, just to give yourself a shot to demonstrate that you can bring that value.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, there's not a lot to add actually. I think the the one thing that's a little bit different right now from every other thing is this advent of really good AI tooling, with the advent of things like Cloud Code or Gemini and Codex and what have you. I think that makes onboarding a lot faster. And one of the very critical things about onboarding these days is you want to really get those pillars properly sunk in. Like you want to get that foundation. You don't really get the opportunity a lot to ask dumb questions like you mentioned. So you want to get those pillars really sunk in so that you're very sturdy, and then you can build on top of that. I think it's very easy to get in and want to prove yourself very quickly. I think it's important to make an impact, but don't necessarily just always think that, yes, I have to prove myself in so many different ways. My recommendation, again, completely anecdotal, would be you probably want to start with being really, really good at one area, particularly the area that's one, important to your manager, whomever hired you, but also important to the role that you're in. And I think if you can get really good at that area, you have pillars that are, you have baseline foundation in every other area. I think it's a lot easier to branch out from there, figure out what the needs are. And then the other thing I would say is, as you get more senior, your role starts to be less of how much you can code or how fast you can code, and it starts to move towards influence. And when you get to the portion where influence matters a lot, maybe at the senior or staff level, it's very critical that you're able to earn trust very, very quickly, because that's usually make or break, unfortunately. Being a staff engineer, being a senior engineer, a lot of times it comes down to influence, whether influence in your team or influence across teams. So I think earning trust very quickly, and a lot of times earning trust is not always just writing code, it's understanding why decisions are made, how they're made, who's driving these decisions and how you can contribute to them. But obviously the overarching theme there is how much value you can add, whether it's like financial value, whether it's whatever metric that's being used to track it. So I think those things become very, very important. I would say in the advent of AI tooling, it's very important to take advantage of these tools as best as you can, whether it's for onboarding through the code base, whether it's for finding different resources across the company. But it's also important to start to form networks with your colleagues, like to be really good, to form relationships with them so that you can find out what's important, who's working on what, and what you can contribute to as well.
Fine. All right, closing remarks. Anything else? Last thing y'all want to add before we before we get out of here?
You kind of put me on the spot. Yeah, I think it's this too will pass, right? That's all I'll say. Like I've been in situations where I was either in a position where I didn't like the work I was doing or I didn't like the team, and then I was interviewing as well, and I heard a lot of no's coming from someone who coaches people in interviewing and loves interviewing. I was still hearing no's, but the no's weren't because my interviewing skills weren't great. It was because there wasn't a right fit, right? So some of the no's that you may be hearing may just be because, like he said, the bar is just a lot higher, right? I had a conversation with a recruiter friend of mine where we were breaking down like what happens, and it could be that you could be on a board and one person, rather, in the interview and debrief, one person thought you didn't say something the right way, and that's totally not within your own control, right? So don't be too hard on yourself, right? Do what you need to do, right? Practice. I was gonna say nobody likes it. I like it, but practice. Do what you need to do, and then eventually, everything is gonna fall in the right place. And if it doesn't, it's not the end.
Yeah, so absolutely +1 to what Uma said about don't be discouraged. If you are looking, just know that something else will come around. Please, where's Darius? If you see Darius, he runs BenTech Interview Prep. He was here somewhere. So we started this maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It's been a little while, but it was a program at Amazon really aimed at bringing in black talent to Amazon. By the time I left a year ago, we had hired over 100 people through that program. It was pretty wild. But the format is every Wednesday, we'd do a prep call, and you could just dial in. Well, it was a video call. You could video call in, and would run through interview questions in real time. It started with engineers, but over time, we ended up adding technical program managers and engineering managers and all this. So that is definitely one avenue. If you are looking for a new opportunity, please take advantage of that. We can connect you with that. Certainly, I would love to connect with all of you. I'll share my LinkedIn. Maybe we can share QR codes as well. If I don't have something that you're looking for, I'm sure at some future point we could connect. Or maybe at some point you could hire me as well. So that'd be great. It's happened. It's happened both directions. But yeah, happy to connect afterwards.
Yeah, same thing. I think it's definitely a harder season, but it remains very possible. And I think that the core thing I would say is if interviews are not going the way that you want them right now, don't let it define you, right? Your performance in these interviews are not really who you are. I think everyone sort of knows that what you're doing on the job is a lot different. Most of the time, it's pretty different from the kind of questions you're asked. No one's asking you, like, for the most part, you're not doing dynamic programming questions or like, I don't know, even tree-based questions on the job, most jobs at least. So don't let it define you. You're still a good engineer. Just keep on working at it. It's just, unfortunately, that's the system we're in. I think it just, like you mentioned, play by the rules and try to just practice a little bit more. But don't let it define you, and there'll be many more opportunities that open up. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Okay.
Would you guys, if you guys were like 19, 20 years old right now, would you guys still become software engineers?
Who says they're not?
Because this supply and demand, like so many qualified software engineers getting let go, less roles, and like I'm studying cloud and network engineering, and when I talk to all my other friends in tech that are still in college, like 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 software engineering, so I'm like, there's a finite amount of roles, and it's, what would you guys do if you were 19, 20? What would you study?
If not software engineering, then what else would you do?
Cloud and network engineering, like
That's still tech, right?
yeah. But for you guys, like, would you guys still pick it?
I love what I do. I do it every day. I make videos about it. I do it at work. I do it outside work. I don't see it as work. So I would definitely still do it. That's me personally, but I know there's a section of people who got into it for the job and for the career. Maybe they would have done something different, but I would personally do it. I love what I do every day. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I think you know a lot more about the experience of somebody who's just starting out than what I do. But I like what I do, and I didn't actually stay a software engineer. About 10 years ago, I switched into engineering management. So software engineering was a path to that. And for sure, you don't, maybe I don't know if this is true or not, but it might be that at the big companies, they might not be hiring people with less experience, but some of the smaller companies might still. And then once you get enough experience, that will get you into one of these bigger companies too.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that in different countries, we are still hiring people who are fresh out of college.
Yeah, same. It's really hard to speak on the matter because I'm not going through it right now, and so I don't want to sound like an expert in that. But I would probably still do it because that's just what I love. It's hard to say for someone who wants to go into it for a career and means to an end instead. So yeah.
Sorry, just to add, like you said, I didn't start at any of big tech. I didn't intern at any tech company. I just wanted to write code anywhere that would pay me, and so I gradually, literally, I was just writing code, right? It didn't matter where. I just wanted to solve problems, and eventually I found my way where I am now, right? So if you go into it with that mindset, where, hopefully you're enjoying it, and yeah, people can tell, right? That passion rubs off, right? That's because the narrative tells itself, right? You're not getting, it's like you're getting paid to do what you love, and you'll go farther than it, right? The man who loves running will run faster than the man who's running to a specific place, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. We got one more panel, but we're gonna take a break. So let's get some food and let's keep mingling. Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Nah, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all for real. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know you probably got to dip.
Yeah, I got to get going, but
Thank you guys so much, man.
it's a
You
really cool
need
microphone.
the tips on the recording. Recording.
It's nice to meet you as well. How do I spell your name? EMI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, how are things
Can
going?
we connect on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
How is that?
I don't have LinkedIn on my phone, but I'll be happy to